Microsoft has not had a good couple of days. Sarah Bond gave an interview with Bloomberg that did not go over well because one of her responses did not seem, let's just say it wasn't sufficient for the internet. Ryan McCaffrey over at IGN gave a few interviews where they referred to Xbox seeming like it's Microsoft gaming. That interview was with former Xbox executives. Let's get into everything that has transpired right now. So if you missed it, the big story everybody was talking about was the Sarah Bond interview. I had my reactions to it while I was watching on Twitter, and it was brutal to watch. By the end, it seems like Sarah Bond is visually upset, and she didn't give a ton of great answers. You can see here is the interview in question, and the like to dislike ratio is not kind, not due to the video, but more so due to the responses of Sarah Bond. Interviewer, share your thoughts on the recent closures of 4 studios. Sarah, Fallout TV series was great. Bond gave the most meaningless non-answer to the decision to shut down Tango Gameworks. Just embarrassing and hard to watch. Well, not everybody agrees with the fact that her answers were inadequate. Some people think that she gave the best answer she possibly could. I also had the same reaction these people had. I don't understand what her response even meant, and it was weird. Let's talk about some of the other news, though, because Ryan McCaffrey said, I spoke to 2 former longtime Xbox employees separately, and both lamented the current state of the business. One told me prior to this week's awful studio closures, I had lengthy conversations with a bunch of Xbox founders, and we all came to the same conclusion. It's no longer Xbox, but Microsoft Gaming. Ouch. I've seen a lot of commentators online allude to this idea, and basically the idea is they bought Activision and they've now extended themselves too thin, and unfortunately Microsoft is coming in and saying, tick-tock, it's time to start making us some money. And unfortunately, that means everything that they've said in the past doesn't matter. It means they need to cut budget, and that means firing a lot of important people. The Tango Gameworks studio, like none of the studio closures make any sense. I'll give maybe Redfall makes sense because their previous game tanked, but then you have Matt Botty behind the scenes saying that's not the case. So it's very confusing and mixed messaging. Just be like, look, Redfall was a disaster. It damaged our brand and we have to close that studio because it was bad. Like that makes sense to people. If you're going to say that's not why we closed it, then that doesn't make any sense to people. Xbox 360 launched with a few hundred people. Last I heard, Xbox is now almost 30,000 people. This is another excerpt from Ryan's interview where he talks about how they're basically being crushed under the own weight of all the businesses they've acquired, and they have no idea how to manage them. And that growth has led to, in this Xbox veteran's opinion, increased oversight and meddling from further up the Microsoft food chain. The reason this seems so inconsistent with previous Xbox leadership team statements is that these decisions probably aren't being made by Phil. This is all getting dictated by Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella and Microsoft CFO Amy Hood, and it all stems from the Activision acquisition. Long story short, they spent too much money. They need to return on that investment. And while their profit margin for Microsoft is higher than ever, Xbox is, I think with the Activision merger, it was only up a small percentage, and without it, it was down 5% year over year. And a line must go up in the business world. So that's the reality we live in. Here are the changes going into effect. This is the email from Matt Botty to staff. Arcane Austin, the studio will close with some members of the team joining other studios to work on projects across Bethesda. Arcane Austin has a history of making impactful and innovative games, and it is a pedigree that everyone should be proud of. Redfall's previous update will be its last as we end development on the game. The game and its servers will remain online for players to enjoy, and we will provide make good offers to players who purchase the Hero DLC. So it's so bad that they're just giving your money back if you purchase the collector's edition of that particular game. Steven Totilo had a different read on the whole Sarah Bond interview. He said, this is part of an exchange about Xbox's issue. Bond cites industry struggles, said the week's studio closures stem from Xbox's responsibility to ensure their game devices services are there through moments even when the industry isn't growing and is in time of transition. I think that word time of transition is very telling. And as Steven Totilo is translating here, long story short, it means something has changed. There is a big transition internally. We know there's a transition in the industry, but Xbox And the brand under Microsoft Xbox is feeling that burn right now. The through line across numerous interviews with Xbox execs strongly suggests pressure within Microsoft on the Xbox division. Phil Spencer to me in February about the 1,900 jobs cut. I have a commitment to the company on the Xbox business being a profitable and growing part of Microsoft. And when we look at the numbers from the last quarterly report, they were down 5% without the Activision Blizzard merger. That's not going to be good enough if that's Phil's responsibility. Sources familiar with Microsoft's plans tell me that the company continues to evaluate other Xbox exclusive games coming to PS5. I understand Sea of Thieves will be a key test for whether other games might make their way to PlayStation 5 or Nintendo Switch. You might remember that from a while back, where The Verge broke the idea that more games are going to be coming to other platforms. Well, if we jump on over to PlayStation, let's see how that did for them. Sea of Thieves is literally the #1 game in the EU. And if you're wondering my sources for this, it's literally the PlayStation blog. So this is PlayStation blog reporting their top sellers. It's Sea of Thieves. In Canada, Sea of Thieves was 3rd. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 was 4th, meaning Sea of Thieves beat Call of Duty. Granted, it's a dated release. In the EU, it's Call of Duty. Grounded is on there now. Fallout 4 is also on the list. So, and if you go to the PS4 games, Fallout 4 is the top game, with Minecraft and Fallout 76 following nearby. So Sarah Bond was actually asked a question about this, and I was shocked she didn't bring up the fact that Sea of Thieves was doing tremendously well on the PlayStation brand, because off the top of my head, I remember that, and I thought it was a little bit odd that she didn't bring it up. Other quotes included Bond. We know our core users love Game Pass. Game Pass is a gaming subscription. You get a whole portfolio of games, but importantly, you get every single one of the games we build day one in Game Pass. And the quality of the breadth of those games has only been going up over time. And you're going to see some more really big games going into Game Pass later this year from Activision's portfolio or Bond. Across the whole slate, you're going to see some really amazing things. And keeping that as something that is really special for Xbox players is central to us. So they're still betting on Xbox Game Pass. But here's what's baffling to me. They have now owned Activision Blizzard for several months. Why isn't World of Warcraft put in the Game Pass? Why aren't all the 360 versions of the Call of Duty games put in the Game Pass where they can use that as a selling point? Like, are they holding on to this until June as they're closing studios? I don't get the strategy. This is an easy win for them. Just like with Riot and saying, okay, you get access to everything if you use Xbox Game Pass for League of Legends, etc. Why would you not do that with the company you now own? What's with the holdup? Continuing on, this is a platform holder that has lost its purpose and direction that fundamentally and perhaps inevitably, given the sheer vastness of its parent company, misunderstands why it exists. That's from a damning piece over on Eurogamer that talked about how it seems Microsoft has lost its way. They've given all these platitudes and positive things that they've said over the years, but when you take a long, hard look at what has been successful, it's not the games. Off the top of my head, there's only a handful of games that have seen wide success for them. I would argue that those include Forza Horizon 5 and Gears 5. And the span between those two is astronomical. And the reason I use those two is because in successful terms for them, you're not talking about even a Starfield. I don't think Starfield was probably a game that met the metrics they were happy with from Microsoft. But maybe I'm wrong on that one, because the overall consensus seems to be somewhat negative. One of the other positive stories I wanted to talk about was the Microsoft Gaming Store. I thought that was positive when it was initially announced. I tweeted about it. I'm like, well, this seems positive. They're opening a mobile store. But when you start digging into it, there was an update shortly after that. Dina Bass said, Xbox clarifying that initially the store will start with discounts on in-game items and the like, rather than full games and apps, though the latter remains the ultimate goal. And The Verge said the following, I have it tweeted here. Although Bond alluded to games in an actual store in her statement during her interview at the Bloomberg Tech Summit, a statement provided to The Verge paints a slightly different picture. This year, we will debut our first mobile offering where mobile players can find deals on their favorite in-game items and discover new games starting on the web so players can access it anywhere. Bond says, this web-based store is the first step in our journey to building a trusted app store with its roots in gaming. You have a store already. This sounds like a coupon page where you go and get discounts on games, and I'm completely baffled as to what it's supposed to be. This is xbox.com/play, where I can see games like Little Kitty Big City, and if I want to buy it, I click this buy button, and then I can do exactly that. I don't understand how the store that they're talking about is different than that or better in any way, because the way it's described in the follow-ups is not some grandiose store experiment. It is literally a coupon page. And I'm a little bit baffled to that. Are games going to be playable on it? They mentioned Bejeweled and Minecraft. I do not look, maybe you understand better than I do, but this is not clear to me. And this is much less exciting than what was said on stage. So I'm confused. And when we start looking at, we brought up how the executives feel like Microsoft might be being crushed under their own weight. When you start looking at everything that they have on their plate right now, it's a lot. You have 30 studios, and this is an old graphic, 50 plus projects. You got 343 with their Halo Infinite stuff, the Coalition with an unannounced Gears IP. They canceled this IP. Turn 10, Forza Motorsport came out. I liked it, but I don't think it was a resounding success. Everwild hasn't come out yet. You have Playground Games. You got Forza Horizon. Ninja Theory is about to come out with Hellblade 2. Perfect Dark's in development craziness. Undead Labs down here. You can't really see it because of how my camera's positioned. But Undead Labs is right here. We've heard some not exciting stories about that. We have Compulsion Games, which was South of Midnight, I believe is the game. Obsidian, Grounded's doing great. Who knows how Avowed's going to do. And there are some IPs here. When you start going towards the bottom and you start looking at the Bethesda studios, though, this is gone, this is gone, this is gone. Toys for Bob is gone. Granted, they've been given a contract to make more games. And when you go down to Activision Blizzard, this has been canceled. Who knows what the status is with the unannounced IP. And then you got the regular stable Overwatch 2. We know it's been doing okay, but it's probably not doing as well as, say, World of Warcraft or... even Diablo has been struggling, but they are about to come out with a new season, so time will tell on that one. The Microsoft story is just a little bit of a muddled one right now, and I wanted to end on a more positive note, but it's a little challenging to do that right now. I had one other quote here that I wanted to bring up, and on Hi-Fi Rush, Asmongold on his stream translated to say their version of success publicly was not Microsoft's version of success. And well, I didn't understand what she was saying because it sounded like word salad to me. He runs a bunch of businesses. So for him, it was crystal clear. He's like, oh yeah, so Xbox saw it as successful. You know who didn't? Microsoft. And Microsoft owns Xbox. So that theory and that interpretation does make it a little clearer for me. This quote from Ryan that we talked about at the beginning, I spoke to two former longtime Xbox employees. It's no longer Xbox, but Microsoft Gaming. Ouch, seems to ring true. Is Xbox still running the show, or have they sort of lost that ability to do so? Hey, thanks for watching, everybody. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell. If you do like my content, I'd greatly appreciate you watching. Thank you so much to the members for supporting this channel. If you want to become a member to support and see more videos like this, click that join button right down below. I do hope, honestly, that this is the last negative video I have to do about the current state of Xbox, but things are in dire condition with the community and with brand trust right now. It's something they're going to have to address. If you want to see the previous video about the behind the scenes stuff that we've heard online, it's not great, but you can check it out there, and I'll see you for the next one. Bye for now, everybody.